Hello and welcome to Photoshop and photo editing. We are going to learn how to use Photoshop today and some of the basic tools we have available to edit our pictures. And so we're using Adobe Photoshop 2017, and when you select the application, this is what it looks like when you open it up, and I just want to take you on a tour around our workspace. And so the first thing we're going to look at is our toolbar. And the toolbar has all of the tools available to us. And the important thing to note is if there is a little triangle in the bottom, if you hold that down, you can select other tools within the tool. And so sometimes there's hidden tools underneath. The next thing we're going to look at is our modifier toolbar. If you look at this section right here, as I select different tools, that area changes. And so the modifier toolbar is specific to the tool that is selected. For example, our brush tool, we can go ahead and change the type of brush, the size, our mode, the opacity, and flow. So there's different ways to edit all of the individual brushes that we would have available. And the last thing we'll look at is our top toolbar for the toolbars, and that is located up here. As we do things, you're able to edit the size of pictures. You can adjust the image, color, and look. You can work with your layers, add filters, so many things using this top toolbar. And lastly, on the workspace is over here on the right. We have our colors and our layers. And so our colors right here, we can go ahead and select different colors. We also have a foreground color and a background color that we can change. We can look at swatches, which will just have the different colors like this, but we can also change it through color. Another way to select color is on the bottom of our toolbar. If we select that button, we can go ahead and change the color as well in there. So okay, that would be my color. And we also have our layers on this right-hand side. And layers, we're going to show how Photoshop uses a layer of transparent papers. And so everything we do, whether it's words or an image, I like to put things on different layers. And so if there's something that I don't like about the picture, instead of trying to crop or erase it out, I can simply delete it and then add something else without messing up the rest of my picture. And so we'll show how layers are used. And then if something is not available, so my workspace, I open it, and for example, right there, my toolbox disappears. Where do you find it? How do you get it back? If you go ahead and select the window from the top toolbar, you can select any of these to open up, and so we'll select tools, and there we have it. So we can open it up again. And so that's our basic workspace all the way around. And we are going to go ahead and open a new document together. We go into File and New. We have our new document selected. And so I'm going to do a custom, and I have a wide picture I'm going to use. So I'm going to change this to 7 by 5 and title this our sample. I want to keep our resolution at 300 pixels per inch. This will be a clear image, and our default color mode is what we want to keep. So I will create this, and now I have my blank piece of paper to go ahead and start adding my pictures to. The first thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to find my picture. So under File and Open, I'm going to go ahead and find a picture that I've already saved in my computer. So I'm opening my picture. And using the Move tool, this is our first tool, if we click and hold down, don't let go of the mouse until you get to your white piece of paper. So I'm holding the mouse down, dragging it into my sample paper, and then once my mouse is hovering over the white paper, I can let go. Notice it added another layer, so I have my background, and then this is a new layer, which means I can move this around. I can also edit the size. So I'm going to go into make it bigger through Edit, Transform, and Scale, which is how to make a picture bigger or smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and fill the space I have and press Enter. And there's my picture. I've filled this space. And now what I want to show you is a way to maybe crop the picture. Now that I see it, maybe I don't want this area over here. So a certain good thing with photographs is zooming in on the most important thing in the picture and getting rid of things around it. For example, if there was a cow here or a barn here that I didn't want, I can crop those out using the crop tool, which is right here. You can go ahead and crop it down. Now I have a square picture. I kind of like that composition. And so this is my new picture, and I've zoomed in on the focal point, and I've kind of gotten rid of some extra room. And that's how cropping is used. It's to just make a more dynamic composition. The next thing we're going to look at is brightness contrast, and this is just to change the look quality of our work. And so through image adjustments, brightness contrast, we can go ahead and see what happens if we brighten the picture. Say it was too dark and we wanted to just brighten it up a bit, so I can add some brightness. In contrast, we'll make the darks darker and the lights lighter. So we can intensify the look of it, or we can mute it down. So I want to increase the contrast. I like how that looks, and so press OK. So I've increased the brightness and contrast. And the next thing we'll look at is our saturation and how to change it to black and white. So again, through image adjustments, if we go to hue saturation, this is fun to play with. And so the first thing I want to look at is our saturation. So saturation means more or less color. And I can make more color, which is very, very bright. I can also reduce the saturation completely to make the picture black and white. Some people like to do a little bit of color, and it has a vintage look to it. And so again, more or less color. So I'm going to make it a black and white picture. And then do I need to increase lightness or darkness? No, I'll leave that regular. And then hue, so say I had color in my picture. Hue really stylizes it. So if you want to create a mood using different color, you can totally change the hue of it, so it just changes all of the color and it looks very stylized. And so I'll leave it at a low, little bit of color, very low saturation, and press OK. And the next thing we'll look at is dodge and burn. And so dodge and burn is a tool to lighten or darken a picture, and it has to be done with care. You want through the modifier toolbar, you want to select the first brush so that it has a nice ombre edge to it. You don't want the hard edged brush, and you want kind of a larger brush. So I can change my size here. I can also real time using the bracket tools next to the P button on the keyboard. I can make it larger and smaller. And so what this does is it kind of casts a highlight. You can see it kind of brightening some areas. It could also darken. So that was the dodge, and then the burn tool will darken areas. So maybe I want to create a vignette feel and kind of darken some of the edges so that she in contrast looks very light, and then the background kind of like starts darkening around her like that. And again, you want to use a large brush so that it's a subtle fade to it. If you use too small of a brush, it creates lines. And so I'll leave that right there I brightened her with the dodge, and I've kind of burned the edges to create more of a focal point on the subject. Next, we're going to color this picture. And so if I took the brush tool and I chose a color, say it was red, let's do dark red, and I just colored the picture, it would just look like I've taken a marker over a picture. And so I'm going to Command Z to step back. Now a really cool thing is I'm going to zoom in so we can see this a little bit more so I can color in carefully. And what I'm going to do is select the brush tool, but in color mode what happens is that I only color grays, and it keeps the detailing of whatever I'm coloring. And you want to color with care. If I color out here, it kind of looks messy, so I'm going to color carefully on the sweater. And so again, it keeps all of the detail. And this is a great thing to do if you want to emphasize something in the picture or have a point of contrast or emphasis in comparison to the black and white picture. So if you go ahead, I'm going to zoom back out. So I've colored in the picture, and now because everything was really low saturation, so barely any color, now her sweater is the focal point of the picture. And again, I used the color mode with the brush tool. And lastly, I'm going to show you a very artistic thing to do, which is using layers and opacity. And so I have my picture that I've edited already, and I'm going to open another picture. And you can do this with any type of picture. And I went ahead and I found a picture of lights. And so I'm going to take this picture and I'm going to move it into my area that I'm working on, okay? It's a pretty big picture, so I can go ahead and edit the size through Edit, Transform, and Scale. I can make this a lot smaller, move it over. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover the picture. And notice what happened is in my layer channel, now I have this picture which is on top of the other picture, and I don't see the girl anymore. And so how do I see her and using this in an artistic way? If I'm on that top layer of the lights and I work with opacity, opacity refers to how see-through a picture is. And if I change the opacity or reduce the opacity, you go ahead and see how now it looks like a clear piece of paper and mixed together. Now you can see her through the other picture. And so this is a very artistic add to a photograph, just to kind of tell a story or just add some interest. And so we have finished our picture now, and to save it, we're going to go to File and Save, and we're going to save it two ways. Our first way, we want to save it as a JPEG so that we can upload it, save it, send it, and use it in other applications. So I'm going to change our format to JPEG, and this is what you would want to turn your work in as. So sample JPEG, I'm going to save it to my desktop, press Save. Keep the JPEG options at the default, and press OK. Now when I go to close it, it's also going to want me to save the Photoshop document. So I'm going to go ahead and save the PSD as well, so I can go in and change that as well. So save that, and max capability will pop up. Just say OK. And now what I have here is my sample JPEG. And you can go ahead and save and use this in any other application that you might want to use it in. And there we go for today. And thanks for sharing, and I'll talk to you soon.